How to spot a liar almost instantly. What if I told you that someone will probably lie to you today? Not a stranger, not some criminal on the internet, someone you know, maybe a friend, maybe a coworker, maybe even someone you trust. And the scary part? You probably won't notice, because lies rarely sound like lies. They don't arrive wearing a villain costume. Most lies sound completely normal. I'm fine. I forgot. I never said that. It wasn't me. I didn't see anything. Simple, ordinary, harmless. But every lie has a cost. A lie can waste your time. A lie can destroy your trust. A lie can push you into making decisions based on information that simply isn't real. The worst part is that many people spend years believing stories that were never true in the first place. Today, you're going to learn 7 powerful tools that can help you detect deception faster than most people. These are practical techniques inspired by psychology, investigation methods, and real human behavior. And no, this isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about becoming harder to manipulate. Before we start, I want to know who's paying attention. If you prefer hearing uncomfortable truths instead of comforting lies, comment 0. If you'd rather stay blissfully unaware, comment 1. Let's see who's awake. Tool 1. The detective question. Most people accidentally make lying easy. Imagine asking someone, "Did you go out last night?" That's a terrible question. Why? Because it only requires one word. No. Done. Conversation over. Professional investigators often use a completely different approach. Instead of asking whether something happened, they ask questions that assume it happened. For example, what kept you out so late last night? Notice the difference? Now the person must build a story. And that's where liars become vulnerable, because facts are easy. Stories are hard. Stories require details, time, location, sequence, logic, consistency. A truthful person usually remembers real events. A liar must create them. And fake stories often crack under pressure. Let's say someone responds, "Oh, just stuff." That's not an answer. That's fog. So calmly ask, "What kind of stuff?" Then, "Who was there? What time did you leave? What happened next?" You don't need to be aggressive. Just curious. Truth usually becomes clearer. Lies usually become weaker. Remember this. Truth loves details. Lies hate details. Tool 2. The 5-second window. When you ask an important question, don't rush. Watch for exactly 5 seconds. Those 5 seconds can reveal more than the next 5 minutes. Why? Because when people feel pressure, their brain works overtime. And sometimes their body leaks information before their words do. Look for clusters of behavior. A sudden touch to the face, a sharp glance away, a long pause, a forced smile, a strange change in voice, rigid posture, rapid blinking, or a sudden deep breath. Many people unconsciously inhale before lying because their body senses risk. Now, here's the important part. One sign means almost nothing. Everyone gets nervous. Everyone acts weird sometimes. But when multiple signals appear together during those first 5 seconds, pay attention. That's when your instincts should wake up. Think about all the times you felt something was off. You couldn't explain it. You ignored it. Then later you discovered you were right. Your intuition wasn't broken. You just didn't trust it. And people who ignore warning signs become easy targets. Quick question. Would you like a second video about advanced lie detection? If yes, come on 0. If not, come on 1. I'm curious. Tool 3. Establish the baseline. This is where most beginners fail. They search for liar behaviors. But here's the problem. There is no universal liar behavior. Some honest people avoid eye contact. Some liars maintain intense eye contact. Some honest people fidget. Some liars sit perfectly still. So what matters? Change. Before discussing anything important, observe how the person normally behaves. How fast do they speak? How loud is their voice? How much eye contact do they make? How do they move their hands? What does relaxed look like for them? That's their baseline. Now introduce a sensitive topic. Watch what changes. Maybe their speech slows down. Maybe they suddenly become careful with every word. Maybe they stop moving altogether. Maybe their confidence disappears. Those shifts are often more revealing than any specific behavior. You're not comparing them to everyone else. You're comparing them to themselves. And that's a much more accurate way to spot deception. Tool 4. The double-check trap. Liars often remember the script. Truthful people remember the experience. That's why asking the same question twice can be incredibly powerful. The key is asking it differently. First, ask casually. You went to the movies yesterday, right? Then later ask, what movie did you watch yesterday? Or, who did you go with? Or, what time did it end? Someone recalling a real memory usually stays consistent. Someone protecting a lie often struggles. Details change. Timelines shift. Contradictions appear. And here's something interesting. When liars feel trapped, they often stop defending their story and start attacking your question. Why are you asking me that? Don't you trust me? What's your problem? Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Either way, you've learned useful information. Honest people usually clarify. Liars often become defensive because attacking the question is easier than protecting the lie. Tool 5. Listen for weak words. Words reveal fear, and fearful people often leave themselves escape routes. Listen carefully for phrases like, maybe, I think, probably, kind of, I guess, sort of. These words aren't proof of lying, but they can signal uncertainty. Imagine asking, where were you? One answer sounds like, I was at home. The other sounds like, I think I was probably at home. Notice the difference? The second answer leaves room for retreat. If challenged later, they can always say, well, I wasn't completely sure. But there's another extreme. Some liars do the opposite. They sound overly confident, too certain, too perfect, too rehearsed, almost like they're trying to intimidate you into stopping your questions. Real memories often contain small imperfections. Fake stories are often polished beyond reality. So watch for both extremes. Too weak or too perfect. Both can be clues. Tool 6. The topic switch. This one is incredibly common. When a liar feels pressure, they often try to escape. Not physically, verbally. Suddenly they say, anyway, oh, by the way, did you hear about? Look at this. The conversation suddenly changes direction. That's not always deception, but it often happens when someone wants distance from an uncomfortable topic. Your response should be simple. Don't chase. Don't argue. Don't get emotional. Just calmly say, we can talk about that in a minute. First, let's go back to what you were saying. Then wait. A truthful person usually returns to the topic. A liar often keeps dodging. They redirect, deflect, distract. Anything except answer. Your greatest weapon here isn't intelligence. It's patience. The calmer you remain, the harder it becomes for deception to survive. Tool 7. Interrupt the story. This technique feels almost unfair. Imagine someone is telling a smooth, detailed story. Everything sounds perfect. Then suddenly interrupt them. Not aggressively, just unexpectedly. Ask about something that happened before the story started. For example, I went to the store and bought milk. You interrupt. Wait, what were you doing before you decided to go to the store? A truthful person can usually rewind. After all, they're accessing real memories. A liar faces a different challenge. Now they must manage the fake story and create additional details at the same time. That's mentally exhausting. Under pressure, many liars experience what investigators sometimes call a cognitive overload. Suddenly, they hesitate, get irritated, lose their sequence, or jump to something unrelated. When the brain is juggling fiction, even simple questions can become difficult. And that's exactly what makes this technique so powerful. Bonus technique, the fake detail test. Let's finish with something clever. Introduce a detail that never happened. For example, so it was raining that day, right? Now watch. An honest person usually corrects you immediately. No, it wasn't raining, but many liars don't. Why? Because they're focused on protecting the story, not recalling reality. So instead of correcting you, they often accept your false detail. Yeah, it was raining. And just like that, you've learned something important. They're not remembering, they're improvising. And improvisation leaves fingerprints. Final thought. Before you run off accusing everyone you know, remember this. Never judge someone based on a single sign. One sign means nothing. Two signs might be smoke. Three signs might be fire. Real lie detection isn't about guessing. It's about gathering evidence, combining signals, testing assumptions, remaining calm, and refusing to be manipulated. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is to become difficult to fool. So tell me, which tool impressed you the most? The detective question? The 5-second window? The baseline method? The double-check trap? The topic switch? The story interruption? Or the fake detail test? If this video changed the way you look at conversations, comment 0. If you think you could never be fooled by a liar, comment 1. And if enough people comment 0, the next video will reveal how to ask questions that make liars accidentally expose themselves without even realizing it.